Just 4 minutes.
I declare my interest as the President of the Institute for Free Trade, and I'd like to begin where the noble Lady Baroness Hoey finished. We need to see Africa as an opportunity rather than as an obligation. I think there's very often a perception lag in international affairs. If you're my sort of age, you'll have grown up with images of Africa on the news, always either a civil war or an appeal. We on some deep level, we think of, children with swollen bellies and flies crawling across them. Africa's growth rate this century has outstripped almost every other continent. And the figures that we heard from Lord Bruce and from my noble friend Lord Popat are all the more extraordinary when we think of the two-way links between this country and that vast and beautiful continent. I can't be the only person who has the experience that when you're wandering around in Lagos and you bump into someone, you start chatting, they say, I'm from Peckham, or in Accra, they say, I'm from Stratford. A lot of people are moving both ways, and that should create exactly the channels for commerce that a wise country exploits. Actually, when I was in Accra, I visited the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which Lady Hoey referred to. And I have to say, it's a small organisation, it's young, there's an awful lot for it to do. But there was an unequivocal belief in the power of commerce and the dismantling of barriers as an instrument of poverty alleviation and social justice, which you don't hear in Washington, which you certainly don't hear in Beijing, and which you don't hear in Brussels. Now the question is, do we still believe in those things here, in this country, in the country of Adam Smith and David Ricardo, the country of Cobden and Bright? Do we still believe in these opportunities? I'd like, if I may, to put it in the form of one specific question, which I've raised before in the chamber, and which I'd like to put to the Minister, and this is the question of Moroccan tomatoes.
Here.
Right? And it may seem trivial, but for precisely that reason, it stands for a great deal of our attitude. So a little bit of context. This country imports 80% of its tomatoes, and our single biggest supplier is the Kingdom of Morocco. When we left the European Union, we inherited a tariff and quota regime that had been designed to protect largely Spanish, but also to a degree Italian, Portuguese and French tomato growers from international competition. Now, even from a protectionist point of view, whom do we think we're protecting in this country? Yes, we do have a short tomato season here. The Isle of Wight used to be in my constituency when I was a Euro MP. It runs roughly from June to September, and even then we still have to import. The Moroccan growing season runs from October to April. So even from the most dunderheaded, Trumpy or Corbynite protectionist point of view, whom do we imagine that we are protecting from those crimson globes coming from North Africa? Now, I had this argument many times as a former member of the Board of Trade, and on more than one occasion with my noble friend Lord Bennion when he was the Minister. And do you know, I'll admit now that we would sometimes prearrange it. I'd say, do you mind if I ask you about the Moroccan tomato? He'd say, yes, please do, because I want to get it in Hansard. My officials keep telling me that they're on the point of removing this ridiculous measure. Why are we imposing tariffs and quotas when we had a shortage last year in this country of tomatoes? Yeah, and so the little play would be acted out, and I'd say, will my noble friend confirm that we're doing this? And he'd say, yes, and I just want to make sure that I want to reassure my noble friend that I've got the assurance of my officials that it's going to happen. As of this morning, when I checked, those quotas and tariffs are still in place. Now, actually, I have a very high regard for the new Business and Trade Minister. I'm sure over the next few years, say disobliging things about some of his cabinet colleagues, but so far Jonathan Reynolds has not put a foot wrong. What he's done on the Swiss trade agreement, what he's done on CPTPP, what he's said about trade more widely. So I would ask the noble Lord the Minister, will he please, as a test case, see if we can repeal this utterly self-defeating measure, not as a favour to our friends in Morocco, but as a favour to ourselves, which will incidentally also help the great continent of Africa.
Here.